Hey guys, so Jim here with Carlist, and I'm reviewing the Hyundai Sante Fe, the 4th generation Hyundai Sante Fe. Now what I have here is the 2.4 liter executive, which is sort of like the Kosong spec line. It's the lowest of the variants. It's coming in at 171,000 ringgit, or I think now with the sales tax deduction, it is around 166,000. Overall, I would love to get, the higher spec version, but even in this sort of lower spec variant, I think it looks really good. It has this really nice punchy 2-box design that you can see behind me. It's got the bonnet, then it's got this nice wagon style shape where everything is kind of going towards wedges and more coupe-like body styles. This looks like an SUV at least. Yeah, let's take a look more around. I think there's some nice details in here. Okay, so interestingly, the front end, its design is nice, but where you look at what you think is the headlights isn't. It's actually the daytime running lights. The headlights are actually down here in this cluster over here. So like the side gills, let's say you put some peanuts in your mouth or some sweets in your mouth and you puff your cheeks up, that's where the headlights are. So you have over here, unfortunately, this is the executive, the Kosong spec lowest end one. So you have halogen headlights. These are the high beams, these are the signal lights. And you have the customary bottom cladding, the cladding around the wheel arches and the side sills and everything. These are 18-inch wheels, and overall, I think it looks pretty decent. In fact, it doesn't even look like a 7-seater. It looks like a CRV size. Actually, it is kind of like a CRV to drive. It doesn't feel very big at all. It feels quite agile. Right. And the back end too, I think it looks quite smart. I mean, there's a lot of contours going on. It's a punchy, kind of squat looking SUV, but it has, nice little details, all these contours along the side, details in the headlights, Santa Fe with a little like sunshine right there, quite nice. You have 18-inch wheels like I said, wearing of course Korean tires, Kumho. Alright. So actually a weird thing I found about the Santa Fe is that with the key, it's the same across the premium, which is the higher end one, the higher spec variant, and the executive, which is what I have here. And there's 2 engine variants, right? You have the 2.2 diesel, the turbo diesel, which I wanted to get, but we have the 2.4 liter petrol, which is non-turbocharged. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, with both of those engines, you get either the executive, the lower end one, or the premium, the higher end one. But with either, you get the same key, and the executive, the lower end one, you also have this hold function over here. So lock, unlock, and hold. You hold it, and the boot will just supposed to come up by itself. It'll just electrically raise itself and lower itself. But this car, this variant, doesn't have it. When I press it, nothing happens. Why not just black it out? Why have it there at all? Do you want to make people feel bad about the fact that they bought an executive variant and not the premium? That's weird. Parcel shelf. Out of the way. So over here you have those 2 seats, right? Under here you have all the little gubbins to change tires and user manuals. Great. So I guess if you want the 2 seats, you gotta pull this up. Let me just try this. I think I gotta recline those seats. Oh, there you go. 1 down, or 1 up. There's that one. Boom. Now the Santa Fe is a actual 7-seater. All right, so I'm inside the Santa Fe. I think it's a very spacious SUV. I think it definitely is, because we had a few guests in here yesterday and they had no problem at all like wiggling around. Even we have 3 adults over here, just with shoulder room as well. It's actually comfortable. You have a lot of room to maneuver. The flat floor really helps with foot placement and everything. It's comfortable. In fact, I think it's more comfortable, more spacious, and more just, you have more room to move around than the winner of the SUV comparison, which was, I think, the Subaru Forester, at least in this category where you can have comfort in the rear. So yeah, points to Hyundai for making a very spacious SUV. And over here, it's not too dark and gloomy. I like the headlining that is not, at least not black. But everything else is black, which is a theme. But it's not a bad place to be. It's actually quite nice, even in this lower rung executive spec. So yeah, good job Hyundai. This is okay. First of all, this is the executive, the not so great spec, the low spec, basically. Okay, for what it is, for 171,000 ringgit, this is decent, I guess. There's nothing really to complain about. I wish there was more toys. I do like the Bluetooth, not the Bluetooth, sorry, the infotainment system. It's we'll run some B-roll right now, but it's a 7-inch display. It's quite sharp. It's good in the sunlight. There's no real glare to speak of. The interface itself is quite intuitive. It's got all the functions that I would need. It's easy to navigate. It's a touchscreen, which I don't particularly like because I've got to do all this every time. But to counter that, they do have useful like shortcut buttons on the side for radio, media, home, phone setup, like a volume knob here. Great. Below here you get the HVAC controls, the air conditioning stuff. Okay, down here there should be this little slot here. Looks like it's a perfect place to put a Qi wireless charger, but this is the lower spec, so I don't get it, even if I would get it in the premium, which I'm not so sure about, but it's a perfect spot for it. But besides that, you have USB, auxiliary input, glove box, big, good. All right, let's go for a drive. Okay, so first of all, I gotta say that this engine has been around for donkey years. It's a 2.4 liter, no turbo, so naturally aspirated engine. It's a bump, okay, right? Okay, it took that pretty well. No real drama. Can you hear that? Can you hear that squeak? I'm not sure what it is, but it's the leather, the faux leather material. It's the seats at the back. Kind of like when the car is flexing and moving on bumps, it's rubbing against each other and making a flexing, kind of like squeaking noise. Can you hear that? I'm not sure if you can pick it up, but if you have no radio on and the aircon is not on, the fan speed is on low, you can hear it, and it's driving me crazy. This engine is 2.4 MPI, which stands for multi-point fuel injection. Multi-point injection has been around for a long time. I think I've seen it in the, when I was a teenager in the Sonata. They had the same engine, and they've kept reusing the same engines. I think it's time for them to upgrade all their engines. Even the 2.2 diesel, they've had that engine for a long time. And I don't know, I guess they've just kept updating it. Okay, you can keep updating engines and it turns out okay. But in this case, for a 7-seater SUV in 2020, this engine is a bit old feeling. Not only that, it just doesn't keep up with the other guys. Like the CR-V, for example, it's a 1.5 liter, so small displacement, but you get a turbocharger, you get a lot more torque. And you feel the lack of it in this thing. I'm going up some hilly roads. I'm braking for a bump right now. I'm going up some mildly hilly road, and I gotta, it has to get going. Imagine if you had 6 other occupants in here, so the full 7 seats occupied. How would it cope then? I don't know. I'm sorry I can't give you that test, but I'm thinking it'll struggle. This engine has 173 PS, forgive me if I'm wrong, and 225 Newton meters of torque. But like all non-turbo engines, that peak power and peak torque comes at the very top of the rev range. So you have to be really making it scream for life before you actually can, enjoy peak power, peak torque. That's not so great if you're, bringing along 7 people and some luggage. It's just not a great experience. So if you're gonna buy a Sante Fe, please, please, please get the diesel. Even though that's been around for a long time, the engine is more powerful. It's more suited for an SUV, it just is. But if you want an SUV that seats 7, that's built pretty well, that handles decently and looks quite good, and is priced also quite decently, the Santa Fe is up your alley. Like, if you really don't need 7 seats. Sorry, unless you really need 7 seats, then think about the Santa Fe. But if you don't, you just need more space. Maybe the CR-V, maybe the CX-5. There's one passing by me right now. Because overall, those other cars, I think, are better. You're paying decent money for this. You want it to be a decent car. And this isn't as decent as it could be. I know the Santa Fe is a good car. I know it. But in this spec, it just doesn't have that room, that opportunity to shine. Because clearly Hyundai has put a lot of thought into this to make it a step above the older Santa Fe. And you just don't feel it, which is a shame. You just don't feel it in this spec. I really wish I had the 2.2 diesel high spec to show you, but I don't. It's just the 2.4 executive, the lower spec. I know this car has greatness in it. And I think this is Hyundai's better looking SUV. I don't know if it's the best looking SUV that Hyundai's ever done. It's definitely one of the better ones. I know this car is good. I know from what I've seen elsewhere on this Santa Fe, it's the best Santa Fe ever. And people should really know about that because it's a good SUV. It's a really good SUV. But in this spec, I can't enjoy it as much as I want to. And I can't shout about it like I want to. I wish I could. I want to shout about this car. I don't like SUVs. And you know what? Okay, this is the thing about the Santa Fe right now. If I can sum up in a few sentences, I don't like SUVs. I don't like them. I don't like the way they sit. I don't like the way they ride. I don't like the way they are off the ground too high. I don't like the way they're compromised for handling. I just don't like SUVs. I don't like the fact that they get worse gas mileage. I don't like the fact that I don't like the fact that people think it's safer than a normal sedan or hatch or wagon. They're not. It's the same structure. You just feel safer because physically you're in a bigger car, but it's not the case. You are just as exposed to impacts and crashes and accidents and whatever else in an SUV. But in spite of all that, I've enjoyed my time with the Santa Fe. It's one of the better SUVs I've driven, even in this lower spec, because I know the foundations for it are good. The foundations for this SUV are solid. They have what it takes to make a great SUV. But I'm not driving the one that is kind of like embodying the greatness of it, which frustrates me. But to end on a higher note, this is a good SUV. If you need 7 seats, this is the one to buy. This, or the CX-8, or the Tiguan Allspace. Isn't that a testament to how good Hyundai is now? That their SUV is going toe-to-toe with the Germans. You know, like I won back the clock 20 years, and Hyundai cars were definitely nowhere near as credible to even think about competing with Volkswagen or anything European, but now they are. And that's really a salute to Hyundai, man. They've come a long way. I really just wish that this was the high-spec variant. I really want to drive that and experience it.